Hey, this is Sharon and Juna. Welcome to Crazy Biatch Asians, the YouTube channel. The following audio was recorded for podcast purposes, so there are no visuals for this YouTube video.
Feel free to put down that phone, go for a walk, cook some food and listen to us chatter for the next little while.
If for some reason you don't want to listen on the YouTube platform, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now, on to the ep. Hey, welcome to Crazy Biatch Asians. This is a podcast where we discuss the issues Asians can face in the Western world with a critical mind, a bit of healthy debate, and lots of tea. Hosted by Sydney-based digital marketer Sharon Jiang and journalist Juna Zhu.
Hey. On today's episode, we've got something for the Asian guys. With the rise of Asians in Hollywood, K-pop boy bands, and Eastern social trends, Asian males are finally in the spotlight. And guess what? You love it, we love it, and the world loves it. So here's to an episode where we cheers to Asian males and their sexy demeanour. Guess what I was watching the other day?
If you are the one.
Good guess, but not quite. My favourite movie.
Oh, Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes.
Okay.
You, of all people, know I need to get my regular dose of Henry Golding.
Yeah.
I mean, when he came out on screen in his role as Mr. Nick Young, oh my God.
Dreamy.
My jaw just dropped to the ground. Never had I ever had such an out-of-body experience seeing such beauty on screen.
Yeah.
And then it didn't just stop there at Henry Golding. Then Simu Liu came onto screen. Chris Payne, Harry Shum Jr., Ronnie Chiang, and he was just like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
It was literally a continuous stream of good-looking Asian men.
Yeah.
And they weren't that typical geek Asian who wears the Harry Potter glasses and sits behind a laptop. They were well-dressed, well-spoken, and oh my God, I could literally go on forever about this movie, but we are not going to endorse this rant just yet.
Yeah, Juna will never shut up about Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, we both love that movie, but her crush on Henry Golding is just out of this world. I remember going to the cinemas with her, and when he came on screen, she just gushed.
I told you, out-of-body experience.
I was like, Juna, shut up. We're in a cinema. Did you know that he and his wife are having a kid?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Didn't you know? Didn't I tell you that I'm pregnant?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. I can see it now.
Yes, please.
How are you feeling about that?
We are expecting baby number 1 mid next year.
Oh, beautiful. Very beautiful. I mean, all jokes aside, it is definitely very nice to see more diverse Asian representation in Hollywood.
Definitely.
Finally. I feel like the perception that Asian men aren't desirable or sexy is currently changing. It's no longer the nerdy Asian depictions anymore.
200%. And I literally never thought I'd be sitting down with the words, Asian men are sexy, coming out of my mouth. But damn,
Yeah.
they are sexy. Henry Golding aside, you've got men like Eric Nam, V from BTS, Choi Min-ho, Rick Yoon, Charles Melton, and hello, Ken Jeong is both funny and intelligent. And a lot of these names you're probably going, who in the world are they? But please just give them a little Instagram stalk and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just East Asians I'm talking about.
Exactly. And speaking of which, it was actually a listener who responded to our episode 1 on Asian fetish, which prompted us to record this topic ASAP.
Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. Shout out to you. So he was keen to hear about the flip side of Asian women fetish, which is the emasculation of Asian men in the West. He said, and I'll keep you a non, but thank you, shout outs again, you'll know who you are. The fact that Asian men aren't really fetishized the same way is definitely an issue for Asian guys dating. Everyone likes Asian girls, but your podcast drives home, for me, the feeling that Asian guys rate pretty low on the rankings of preference.
Yep, so Asian guys, we've got your back.
Yeah.
Because things are definitely changing right now. While Asian men were previously not seen as desirable in Western media, we're kind of experiencing a new, should we say, sexual awakening for men of Asian descent.
100%. That's actually a really good way to put it. A new sexual awakening for men of Asian descent.
Yes.
And look, we can admit we can't change the dating preferences of each individual. But what we can do is explore some of the ways that Asian men are really being highlighted in the current climate, as well as the history of why Asian males were desexualized in the first place.
Exactly. We don't want to sit here and make false promises and say that this episode will result in everybody dating Asian men, because that is totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
But what we do hope is to share some aspects of Western pop culture that are changing and maybe prompt more people to seek out other Eastern forms of entertainment.
Yeah.
Hello, K-pop, which is another
Yes.
topic that we will touch on later on.
Exactly. Another topic that Miss Juna over here is very well versed in and very passionate about.
Yes.
So before we go into the positive culture shift, we do want to touch on the racist history of the emasculation of Asian men. Because we do think it's important, because so many Asian men in the West live with the flow-on effects of this unfortunate history. And we have seen that come to light through some of the DMs that we've been getting from Asian males. It's that they live with this in their everyday. It's their lived experience. So, emasculation basically means, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, to make a man feel less male by taking away his power and confidence.
Yeah, that totally sums it up. And we found an interesting and a bit of a heavy read that speaks to this issue. To quote a chapter in An Interethnic Companion to Asian American Literature, the author Jin Chi Ling wrote, Asian men are often viewed collectively in the West as lacking sexual rigor. So this says that the general idea is that in the West, Asian men are perceived as sexually inferior and feminine.
Yeah, and it's interesting when discussing the whole lacking in sexual rigor thing to realize where it originated. Because I don't know about you, Juna, but I never personally understood its origins until the research.
Neither, yeah.
I mean, it's something that we've both heard in passing through Asian male friends of ours, but we've never looked into it from a scholarly perspective. So Ling goes on to say that the feminization of Asian men is, I quote, intimately associated with the rise of modern Western colonialism. It also ties in with Asian immigration into the West and the whole yellow peril idea. I'm not sure if anyone remembers that term from modern history, but yellow peril presents the people of East Asia as an existential danger to the Western world. I'm not sure, Juna, if you remember that term from school.
I can say that I was definitely not my history teacher's favourite student.
Didn't pay attention.
But that term definitely stuck with me.
Yeah,
I have
yes.
to say that. Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar, yellow peril is a racist phrase that started in the 19th century due to the immigration of Chinese and Japanese workers to the US and also Australia in response to the gold rush. So we won't get too much into it, but if you Google yellow peril propaganda posters, you'll see cartoons of Asian men drawn in very stereotypical and quite horrific ways.
Yeah, it's actually pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And Ling argues that by presenting Asian men as effeminate, it's less threatening to the West. If we're going to follow traditional ideas of men and women, the former being the stronger sex and the latter being the weaker one, and I'm not saying I condone that, but it is the traditional gender theory that, you know, no one can argue with.
Yeah.
By feminizing Asian men, it makes the assumption that he lacks power. And, well, powerless men aren't going to challenge the West-East hierarchy, according to Ling.
Exactly. And I think we do want to stress that with the whole traditional gender theory, that's not our personal views. That is just what's written in scholarly articles that reflects that time of thinking.
Yes.
Especially when the whole yellow peril idea also came about. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I found another article that supports this point. Andrew Kung wrote for CNN that Asian men, I quote, have been desexualized ever since the first Chinese communities immigrated to the US, as a way of minimizing the threat posed by Chinese men, who were often portrayed as stealing white Americans' jobs and women. Asians were characterized as passive, effeminate, and weak. And this weakening that occurred decades ago often has a knock-on effect to the current Asian male's confidence and many aspects of his life, including dating.
100%. And Kung actually goes on to say that, I quote, non-Asian women felt inaccessible, fueling a pre-existing feeling of invisibility. We'd also like to point out that this concept isn't just happening to hetero Asian men, but also those in the LGBTQI+ community. A 2006 Australian research paper speaks to the racism that gay Asian men experience in the gay scene, where one interviewee said he just wants to become, quote, more visible.
So that really hammers home the idea that hetero men and those in the LGBTQI+ community have both struggled with the idea of emasculation, which affects their dating life. Okay, Junes, let's bring in some more Asian Australian experiences.
Yes, let's. So it's unfortunate that because as much as Australia has always been such a multicultural country, this lack of masculinity prescribed to the everyday Asian male has been an issue. In an ABC article, a bunch of young Asian Australian males were interviewed on their struggles in the dating world. Dating coach Iona Jung says Asian men have, I quote, few positive role models to draw confidence from when it comes to dating.
Exactly. I mean, just look at the Hollywood movies pre-Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
Asian men were either the nerdy guy who you cheated off in the maths class or the kung fu black belt guy, Jackie Chan, Jackie Chan.
Totally. And how about being the funny sidekick who's purely just there for laughs? Or the exchange student who speaks broken English and is enrolled in ESL class?
Yes.
Like, you place them next to the muscular 190 centimetre Chris Hemsworth or the well-groomed Ryan Gosling, and there's actually no denying the fact that your Asian tropes aren't inspiring at all for Asian males.
Yeah.
Plus, heaps of these stereotypical roles aren't even realistic. Like mate, most Asians can speak and understand English pretty well.
Precisely. In that ABC article, a guy called Chris Kewen put it perfectly. He said, the media plays an important role in informing who we are attracted to. And as Kewen was growing up, in an effort to assimilate and date a white chick, he downplayed his background. He said, through that stage of my life, I wore blue contacts, I dyed my hair blonde, I spoke with a very Aussie accent, I tried to dispel my own culture. And honestly, it's no wonder because just look at the representations in Hollywood. Mr. Yuniyoshi from Breakfast at Tiffany's, Long Duck Dong in 16 Candles. I mean, Google them and give me one reason why they're not problematic.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But a lot of that is changing.
Yeah.
And rewinding back to my dangerous obsession with Crazy Rich Asians, that movie definitely paved the way for new Asian representation in media.
Yes.
I'm going to speak for a lot of people here, but I don't think anyone sat through that film and thought Henry Golding was not appealing. And if you did, I'm going to come for you.
No, you better watch your back. Juna's going to knock on your door.
Oops. But before even seeing that movie, I didn't even know who Henry Golding was, which is an utter disgrace to say, and I'm sorry, Mr. HG, but now pretty much everyone knows him. He's landed roles in major Hollywood movies like Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman, where he was acting alongside Matthew McConaughey as an equally badass and attractive character. And then he even starred alongside Emilia Clarke in Last Christmas, which you and I went to go see together. And I read somewhere that she took out the top spot as the highest earning actress in history. And Henry Golding played the role as her handsome charmer. Like, wow.
Wow.
Just
He played the protagonist, which is something
Yes.
really not seen before.
Yeah.
With Asian characters. And it's interesting because Henry Golding, he was quite a small fish before Crazy Rich Asians. I read somewhere that he started off as a travel host for this British BBC travel show. I think it was called The Travel Show, a creative name. So it's incredible to see his name rise in Hollywood because he really was not much of a big name before that. And look, I know there's some criticisms of Crazy Rich Asians on the internet, but I personally love that movie.
Yeah.
I think they were able to depict people from an Asian background through all character tropes, from the sexy protagonist, like Henry Golding, to the bad boy, to the funny one, to the serious one. all of them had a level of humanness, speaking to the idea that Asians, specifically Asian men, are just as varied and sexually desirable as white men. They aren't just the nerdy Asian or the IT guy. They could each hold their own.
Yes, so true. It's currently the highest grossing romantic comedy in the last decade. And I think a lot of that is due to the Asian cast and the fact that the characters were presented with such elegance and wealth and high esteem, who spoke perfect English, were leading successful careers, and had been able to make a living for themselves in the Western world.
Exactly. And personally, Astrid is somebody that I want to be.
Oh, yes.
If-
I want
you
to be
know,
Astrid.
Like, I think everybody just wants to be Astrid. And I think that really does great things for both Asian males and females as well. And Yumi Nam wrote for the New York Film Academy that the actors portray a deep humanity of the characters through their individual hopes, dreams, relationship problems, and longing for love and acceptance, creating a more fleshed out and truer representations of Asians in the real world. And I definitely agree with that. I like the idea that Crazy Rich Asians presented a truer representation of Asians in the real world, because that was a concept rarely seen in Western films.
Yeah, exactly. And Timothy Steins wrote for The Conversation that, as an Asian male himself, he, I quote, liked that an Asian man was in the leading romantic role and that he was represented as sexy and desirable. And I mean, of course, Henry Golding.
Your crush.
He's more than just desirable.
Yes.
Let's be honest. Desirable doesn't even cut it.
He's your baby daddy. We both know
Yes,
that.
and Shaz, like, just please cut me off here because you know there's no going back when I start talking about Henry Golding.
So in the spirit of moving on, let's go on to another part of pop culture that is gaining major traction worldwide. Take it away, Juna, because I know you're a massive fan.
Oh yes, K to the pop. You know I love my K-pop. K to the pop. Stop. I'm trying to be a K-pop star myself.
Yes.
No, jokes. This area of the entertainment world presents Asian males in a different light, yet they are still idolized.
Yes.
So question, what kind of man do you see K-pop idols as, Shazza?
Okay, look, admittedly, don't come for me. Any K-pop fans, don't come for me. I'm not as well versed in K-pop as you are. Junes, we know you're the biggest fan.
Am I the biggest fan?
You are. If anyone listening has comments or questions about K-pop, direct them to Juna. Say to
God.
Juna, because I'm bloody hopeless.
This is a lot of pressure on me,
Lots of pressure,
Chaz.
sorry. Look, from a clueless person's perspective, it is hard to ignore their presence. And from what I've seen, K-pop boy band idols are very different to the beauty standard of the desirable Aussie man. K-pop guys have this feminine air about them, and they don't subscribe to the Western idea of masculinity, which is ripped, kind of rough looking, like super into sport, like wide jawlines, that sort of stereotypical idea of masculinity. I think K-pop guys they've got beautiful, flawless skin. Obviously, they follow a skincare routine, which good luck getting lots of Aussie guys to have a 10-step routine.
Which you all should do anyway.
Exactly. Follow the Koreans. They often wear makeup, earrings, feminine outfits like satin tops and crop tops. I think for me, they look kind of ethereal.
Right? And they have this porcelain skin. And they're slim, they're pale, flamboyant in their movements.
Yes.
And quite equally as beautiful as the female stars. And they have that, have you noticed they have that teen, dewy looking kind of skin?
Yeah, 100%.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's very true.
But this wasn't always the case, and it's only recently when the surgence of the beautified Korean man became accepted. There was a singer by the name of, and I'm going to be an utter disgrace and say this incorrectly with an Aussie accent, but here we go, Yang Jun-il, back in 1991, who appeared on stage one day dressed in an oversized printed jacket over a sleeveless black jumpsuit. Really chic, right? He wore a fedora and had that typical milky, dewy and glowing complexion, the look that is idolized today.
Yeah.
But this display of femininity was not accepted back then, and he caused so much controversy that the audience booed him off stage, and the government even refused to renew his visa, so his career eventually faded away. True story.
The government intercepted.
Yes.
Wow.
And he literally just had to fade away into nothing.
That's crazy.
It's really sad. But every decade since then has produced more beautified Korean pop men, and now beauty and makeup is actually a requirement for a male K-pop singer to become successful.
Oh.
I mean, you don't see a male K-pop star under the sun who hasn't had some sort of cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
And fun fact, South Korea consumes $13 billion worth in cosmetics annually, according to a 2017 report. And under this figure, South Korean men are the #1 male consumers of beauty per capita.
Wow, I mean, those statistics really speak for themselves. But honestly, I had no idea about this, the history of this. I thought the feminine look was always the trend.
I know, right? Me too.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of using makeup and beauty to build an honourable reputation expands into the LGBTQI plus community. So K-pop's first openly gay idol, Holland, came out in 2018, and this made international headlines. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Speaking on the topic of makeup, he told publication Allure that makeup allowed him to find the courage to become more of himself. He talks about how in Korea, makeup has no gender or sexuality, and instead it's just created for everyone, which is so beautiful to hear. And I mean, just take a look at BTS or 17. I mean, it's very rare you see them without bright eyeshadow on or foundation or some funky colored hairstyles.
Yeah.
If anything, their makeup only enhances their confidence. And this is what masculinity is all about in Korea and what is idolized around the world, even in Western countries. And I am here for it.
Yeah, I'm loving this passion. See, we told you, Juno is very passionate about K-pop.
Yes.
So we're going to let her do that little monologue.
Sorry.
Look, I definitely think that South Korea is leading this movement where men are able to express their identity in ways other than the generic masculine trope. And I think this is something that is really yet to reach Australian shores. I mean, look, we can only speak anecdotally for Australia, but it's something that we really don't see. No one, nails painted, makeup on guys, that's never a thing here. I think it's good because it's diversifying what it means to be a male.
A major yes. And I think the word acceptance is definitely being thrown around in topics other than masculinity these days, which is great to see.
Yeah. And actually, another media type that's contributed to the change in attitudes towards Asian men is social media, specifically Chinese Douyin and the hot trend #Chinese street style.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
This, you can direct all your messages to Shazza.
Yes, please. Any Chinese street style, please send them through to me.
She is all over it and on the TikTok.
Basically. So for those who aren't familiar, there's a massive trend on TikTok where super stylish Asian girls and guys have their outfits filmed on the street. Think street style in slow-mo video and super fashion.
Yes, as much as I love K-pop, oh my God, these TikTok videos are amazing.
Yeah.
They just leave me in absolute awe every single time I watch one. Their composure, their style, it's just so seamless and gives off that cool boy vibe where it's like, oh damn, I could never date one of you because you're just way out of my league.
Yeah, they feel so out of my league as well. And they're just all so elegant and cool. Like, how do I be like that?
Oh my God, so sexy.
So exactly. And what's interesting is that I've seen heaps of Caucasian women reacting to these Chinese street style videos and commenting on how attractive they find the Chinese guys.
Yeah.
Now look, obviously this isn't some hard statistic, but it's definitely more common to see Asian girls going after white guys than white girls going after Asian guys. So to me, it was an awesome surprise that this super Chinese trend is going global and viral.
Honestly, I just have 4 words to sum this all up.
Yeah.
Asian men are sexy. Mic drop, I'm out of here.
So, Junesies,
Yes.
out of the both of us, you have a stronger preference for Asian men. what is it that you love about Asian males?
Yes, I wouldn't say my type is specifically and only Asians because for me it comes down to personality, but I appreciate the fact that they are attractive and equally as good looking as every other race. But this actually wasn't the case. Growing up, I definitely had a preference for Caucasian males only. But as I've grown older, my type has expanded to include Asians. And I've got to say the entertainment industry has definitely played a huge role in this.
Yeah.
Going to an all-girls school especially, I was never exposed to what Asian males were like. So my understanding of what an attractive guy I'd fall head over heels for was purely based on what the entertainment industry was feeding me. You know, like your Justin Bieber and Zac Efron, who is still really hot.
There we go. Another one.
It's now clear that it's not actually the case, and Asian males have built such a reputation for themselves in the 21st century that just puts them on a golden pedestal, and it just makes me so damn proud for them.
100%.
What about you, Shazza? Do you think this current trend of K-pop and social media is helping shape perceptions of Asian males in a more positive light?
I think on the whole, yes. But I can definitely think of a few criticisms of the current representation.
Yes.
For example, K-pop stars are generally quite surgically altered and made up. And lots of the cast in Crazy Rich Asians are half Asians and half Western. So what does that do to the psyche of the everyday Asian man? Look, I don't know. So if you are an Asian man and you have thoughts about this, please write in. It's something that we are curious about. But look, in saying that, I do think it's super important for Asian males to have strong role models in media. As mentioned by the dating coach that we quoted earlier, she said one of the best ways to grow a man's confidence is by having strong role models.
Yeah.
And whether that be through entertainment, through social media, whatever it may be. So I'm definitely here for the rise of K-pop and Asians in Hollywood. In my personal life, look, I have witnessed how easy it is for a white guy to identify with strong characters in film.
Yes. Bring on the ego.
So my partner likes to jokingly
Stress that
need
word.
I emphasize before I go on, he likes to jokingly refer to himself as Thor.
Oh.
Like jokes don't come for him. I swear to God, if someone comes for him.
Okay, as much as this is really funny, I'm going to be really honest here, and he isn't entirely wrong because he is definitely masculine.
Oh God.
He has the looks going for him,
Oh
and
God.
the height, which apparently is a deal breaker for most girls. So, you know, saying that his Thor isn't really entirely incorrect.
Oh, he's gonna hate us. He's gonna hate me. Look, although it's funny and a bit of a light-hearted joke between us two, it also highlights how fictional gods like Thor, or sexy spies like James Bond, or high-flying billionaires are mostly played by white males.
Yes.
So it's so easy for Western men to find role models or feel seen. So I'm really happy that with Crazy Rich Asians and the upcoming Marvel film, currently with the working title Steamboat, Asians can now have their moment in the sun.
Yes, and let's hope this carries out into reality TV in the Western world. Like, hello, Bachelor franchise, please, please, please,
Oh,
please.
yes.
It would actually be so amazing to see an Asian as the next Bachelor, or even have a bit more of a diverse cast next year.
Exactly. And actually, speaking of The Bachelor, I think there's an Asian creator on YouTube that has done a parody.
They are the best.
It's hilarious.
It is-
I don't remember who the creator is. Just search on YouTube, Asian Bachelor, and it'll come up. It's hilarious. So this really begs the question, how do we continue to change the narrative for Asian men?
Yes.
If we're going along with the theory that positive role models are crucial for everyday Asian males, we really need more and more Asian creators, whether that be on the silver screen or through social. There is a stereotype that Asians fall into safe jobs, like accounting or consulting, medicine. Not a safe job, that's a very hard job. But it really takes a handful of courageous people to follow their talent in the arts in order to create these positive role models. And I do think lots of Asian creatives are stepping up and creating a name for themselves, but also for the general Asian pride.
Yeah.
What do you think, Junes?
I cannot stress this fact enough. We've come this far, so what is next?
Yeah.
Hollywood movies and those select few Asian celebrities can only do so much. So now it's really up to each individual to put that confidence into practice and pave the way to an even better future for Asian males. Just because Asian parents would love to see their children become lawyers and doctors, and if you are a lawyer or doctor, oh my gosh.
All power
props
to you. Props to you.
But if you want to go study arts, become a creative director or a journalist, or pursue your love for singing or dancing because that's what makes you happy, then why the hell not?
Exactly. And it's a new excuse to tell your Asian parents why you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yes.
I'm going to pursue acting for the representation of Asian males. I have a higher purpose.
Exactly. Like you and I, we've delved into the media industry.
Oh God, yeah. My parents was like, "What, do you want to be a journalist? What?"
Yes.
So, considering both Judah and I aren't Asian men.
Are we? Not?
Oh, we're not? Oh, we're not? We'd love to hear from you guys on your experiences with this topic. Do you feel a hindrance to dating outside your race because of the general stereotype of Asian men in the West? Do you feel like this stereotype will go away in your lifetime? Are you embracing this new change of attitude? Because let's be honest, what was your mic drop?
Asian men are bloody sexy.
Exactly. So email us at crazybiatchasians@gmail.com or slide into the DMs on Insta at crazybiatchasians.
All right, we hope we were able to empower some Asian men out there because it seems like the culture is definitely shifting in mainstream and alternative media, and we are here for it.
Exactly. And again, we'd like to take this opportunity to open the conversation to Asian males, both heterosexual and in the LGBTQI+ community, who have experienced this issue of emasculation.
Before we leave, we'd like to read out this great listener DM in response to our first episode on Asian fetish. Little plug. He said, I quote, "It feels so relatable even though I'm half and look quite white. There's so many guys that go, you look so exotic, OMG. That word again, that sends shivers down my spine.
yeah.
Exotic.
It's just so cringe.
Ugh.
And look, for context, this listener is speaking to his experience as a half Asian and half Caucasian male in the LGBTQI+ scene. We talked a lot about Asian girls being called exotic as part of the fetish, but apparently this also happens in the gay community, which is also quite alarming.
Alarming is definitely the word for it.
Creepy.
But thank you, listener, for sharing. And honestly, everyone, please keep on sending through your personal experiences because we love to hear them. And this episode wouldn't have been possible without you guys.
Exactly.
And remember to subscribe to Crazy Biatch Asians on your favorite podcast app. And if you've got a sec, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so we can keep going.
See you all on the Instagram at crazybiatchasians for, not gonna lie, the best Asian memes. Thanks for listening and watch Crazy Rich Asians, everyone.
For Henry Golding.